Victoria, I want you, as a former OnlyFans marketer, to shatter the illusion of OnlyFans.
These guys think that they're talking to the girls, but it's actually these things called shatters that have a brief about the girl so they can best represent the girl. And they are expected to hit a certain quota of money that they're making. It's literally a way to make money off men. Then we get into recruitment. We would scour the internet looking for girls that were, number one, already posting provocative content. And you would literally just cold message them from this agency account. And we're throwing parties, we're having dinners, we're renting Airbnb mansions. You're seeing all of this luxurious lifestyle. That's how we would recruit girls.
The funny thing is, there are people that would hear what you've said and yet they still go back to OnlyFans. What do you think feeds into that?
I think that there's a couple things. That's a great question.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Greater Than Podcast. My name's Elijah Merle, and I'm so honored and blessed you've taken out time to join us today. Listen, wherever you find yourself in the world, God's doing good things, and He's doing it in your life. And today, I'm so honored and blessed to be joined by Victoria Sinis. She's in the virtual building, man. It is so honored to have her here. Victoria, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you on. Appreciate what you're doing and just the great work that the Lord has you doing and the great testimony that you have. And of course, you were involved in OnlyFans and things of that nature and the marketing side of things. And so, obviously that's going to be an interesting talk to get to that. But before that, I want to go into your testimony and, just how the Lord has helped you. And so, because I think it's so powerful. And of course, OnlyFans is a part of that, but that's just only a specific part of the testimony. And so, but I want to start with the testimony. And I know there's some people that are like, get to the OnlyFans stuff. But I'm like, no, let's get to the testimony. Let's hear what the Lord's done in your life. Because honestly, as I've done some research, it's a phenomenal testimony, Victoria. So, let's start at the beginning. What was your childhood like? Can you take us into that?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess to go back to little Victoria, but I guess fun facts for people. Born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. I have immigrant parents. So my mother was born in Manchester and my father was actually born in Greece. So half English, half Greek, first generation Aussie, I guess you could say. Youngest on both sides of my family. So my dad's side with all his family, I'm the baby. And on my mum's side, I'm the baby as well. And I come from a huge family. My mum's one of 7, and then my dad's one of 4. So I guess that's just little fun facts. And then growing up, I guess, what do you want to know? Do you want to start at like the beginning of like when I was little? Do you want to go through primary school, high school?
Man, take me into it, Victoria. Like I said, I want to hear about this. Just tell me about, you got that Australian accent. So, it's easy to listen to. So you do whatever you want to cover,
It's
Victoria.
so wild. Yeah, well, I guess it is. It's so beautiful. As I guess many people know that obviously working at OnlyFans agency is such a huge part of this testimony, and honestly, the struggles begin for me as little as I can remember as being like 4 years old. And for me, there was always just like this overwhelming sense of like us and them, that I'm here and I'll always be here and I'll never be there. And I can't quite pinpoint exactly when it started, but I know that just from such a young age, this was such an overwhelming sense of, I guess, isolation, loneliness, whatever you want to kind of call it. And it just compounded through my life. And I think that so many people can relate to that. I don't actually think that's a unique story to me. And I think so many people grow up feeling like they're just here and all they want to do is just get there. Once they get there, then they matter. Then their life can begin. Then, whatever it is. And so for me, I have memories as early as being in kindergarten and feeling like my kindergarten teachers were really mean to me. And it just made me feel so incapable, disqualified. It made me feel like I was stupid. And these were kind of my early formative years of the things that I thought and felt. And then I guess, to come through primary school years, I just feel like it just grew and grew and grew. And I remember when I was little and I'd say to my mom that I don't have any friends. No one wants to come to like my parties, and kids were just really mean at school. And kids can be cruel, and those things do just happen, and it's just a part of life. But especially in primary school, kids were just so mean to me. Teachers were mean to me. And so again, it just compounded these feelings of us and them. I'm here and I'll never be there. And I guess anyone who perhaps maybe has immigrant parents, they can relate to some degree of um, there's just that lack of emotional, I guess, awareness when it comes to, I think, immigrant parents, because, well, yeah, they've come from crazy places, you know, like my grandparents on my dad's side, I have nothing but respect for them. I actually got to go to Greece. This is actually really cool, but I got to go to Greece and actually see where my dad was born.
Oh,
And he's
wow.
literally born in like a mud hut. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, no floor, no nothing. It's still there. My grandparents, my yaya, which is my grandmother, would tease my papu, which is my grandfather, and say she was smarter than him because she got a grade 3 education and he only got a grade 2 education.
Oh,
So
wow.
when you see these backgrounds, right, you can totally empathize with why, you know, our parents lacked in some areas, and so to no fault of their own, but that just meant, and the context I think is needed for so many people as well, to understand. And there's an emphasis on this that I'm sure we'll get to, but um, yeah, that there was no, I guess, foundation for emotional support for me growing up. Again, I'm the
Hmm. Hmm.
youngest. So by the time it came around to me, my oldest brother is like 9.5 years older than me. And my mum even told me this. She goes, honestly, by the time it came around to you, she's like, I don't know. I guess I just thought with like technology and like kids are smarter these days. Like I didn't really feel that I had to like parent you. So that kind of meant I was left to my own devices with a lot of things, and just had to figure things out on my own. So when you have an extremely sensitive child who kind of feels this way, doesn't have that emotional support or foundation or even guidance in their home life, it leads to just a very sad kid, you know? So
Wow.
that was a lot of my childhood growing up, just super, super sad, lots of series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
And so for me, which will tie into OnlyFans things for everyone, but that meant that my manifestation of insecurities, and I to get there meant that I had to make
Hmm.
it a business and I had to make a bunch of money and then I would get there. So that's kind of the overview of little Victoria.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a fascinating thing here and point here. Like I said, I really want to touch on your testimony in this part
Mm,
of the podcast and what the Lord's done in getting you out and giving you a platform and a place now to do the great things you're doing. But I know like there was, you were bullied a lot, as a kid, and that went through, like you mentioned that, even your teachers were
mm.
saying some horrible things. I mean, like, this is crazy stuff that you're going through. And like, now this is where, and this is real time where we're going to see if my research is right. Now this is real time, y'all, but, this is where, like, later on, like, if I'm not mistaken, like around the age of 13 was that like your first smoke, or was that like, or
Yeah.
something like that? Like, can you take us into that part?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, I started smoking cigarettes when I was 13 and I was actually exposed to cocaine as well at 13. And then drinking as well. Again, older family. So
Yeah.
that means I was exposed to a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have been. Yeah, so you're 100% correct. From 13, I am smoking. Yeah, I have cocaine for the first time. I'm drinking. Um, and basically I never stop until until I meet Jesus. So drugs and alcohol and cigarettes were a very huge part in my story. Yeah.
Man, that's such a thing, so young going through these things. It's just such a interesting thing. And then, also too, that what ends up happening, like, from the research that I did, was like, you end up in a couple of abusive relationships, on down the line. And so, like, can you take us into that as well? Cause I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to as well. And it's so powerful.
Totally. And that's great that you bring that up because it's so true. Like, especially, man, unfortunately, nowadays, you will meet more often than not a woman who has been in a really unkind and really hard relationship. And it is devastating because it shows that there is multi generations of broken men and multi generations of women that are now being broken because of, the consequences of these really hard relationships. And so I know for
Yeah.
me, again, manifestations of insecurities and feeling like, um, just no validation in any capacity. I didn't get that in my home life. And so again, you always have to try and search for things. And so drugs, alcohol, boys, whatever it is, they're always the band-aid that you feel is going to be the thing that makes you feel better. And so, yeah, I was literally fresh 18. And I met someone who literally lived on like the other side of town. And unfortunately, yeah, I talk about this with young girls, and so there's so many which way rabbit holes we can get into this. But of when you're young, like it's a hard one to give absolute statements to. But I really do not agree or think that when you are so young, having older men interested in you is a positive. Even if you're 18 and they're like in their mid 20s, it's just weird, and I don't think that it's right in any capacity. And so for me, that's exactly what had happened. I was young. And at 18, I don't know how people think that like adults are 18-year-olds. Like that is such a foreign concept to me because we know nothing, like at all. But yeah, so met this guy. He was older. You can kind of understand a little bit of the context of the fragility of who I was and my identity. And this guy was just my everything. I literally like thought he was like up here, like better than me, and I was beneath him. And that's how he made me feel. Someone who was incredibly controlling, to degrees of where I had to take photos of where I was to prove where I was. I had to respond to messages immediately, even if I was driving. Couldn't work, no matter where I worked, no matter what job it was. There was always someone there that I was interested in. And so that is such a big and deeper conversation into honestly, this over-sexualized culture, this pornified culture, how much it influences men, it festers insecurities within them. And unfortunately for women, we don't have any educational context to these things. And so we just think that it's our fault and that we're the ones in the wrong and that we're, less than and have to prove ourselves to these people that just consume it. And that was my situation for 6 years,
Man, wow. Man, it's such a theme that we see. Like, obviously, this has been around since the beginning of time, this brokenness in relationships and things of that nature. And so I just always like to hone in on that because I feel like I guarantee there's somebody watching or listening to this that has gone through or is in some, relationship like this. So for you, Victoria, and everybody's story is different, but for you, how did you like end up getting out of that? And what was kind of the next steps after that relationship ended?
My goodness. Honestly, I just feel like it was the Lord. Like the easiest way I can explain it is that because, so for 2 years, I was with this person, like, I guess you could say, like, in an official capacity. And then for 4 years, it was on and off. So people can fill in the blanks on how much not fun of a time that is.
Yeah.
And it would vary, sometimes we would not speak for a couple of months. Sometimes it would be a couple of weeks. Like I think the longest we ever went was like 8 or 9 months, but then the cycle would continue. And it was just always that way. And it always felt like something that could just never break. And it was always the default person and the safe person. And even though this person was so hurtful and so harmful and all of that, you always just kept going back in it because it felt like a safety blanket. And it, again, was this validation of, well, if this person responds to my message, if I can go over to this person's house, then therefore I get that hit of validation again. And that's what a toxic cycle is actually. Excellently, one of my therapists put it this way, and I think a lot of girls really need to hear this, is about that cycle of abuse. And so what happens with someone is you'll meet them and it's so hard. I guess this is why identity comes into it, but something that even when I explain this to women, they seem to think it's really helpful, and I do too. It's that love bombing, and it's that very intense, overwhelming. And so perhaps maybe for a year, it is exceptional and they are so intense and it moves really quickly and all the things you're like, oh my gosh. But then you'll see like one outburst and then maybe in another 6 months, you'll see another one. But then that gets smaller and smaller. And so it's really important to notice these things and to understand that and to not dive headfirst, I don't think anyways, into something and be so blinded. And I guess this is a worldly context. Obviously, if you put faith into this, it's a totally different conversation. But so it was just this cycle. And so then that outburst, they get smaller and smaller, right? So then it goes from once every 6 months to every 3 months to every 2 months, 1 month, then once a week, then every day. Then there's a big blow up and then they repeat the cycle. And so that's what it was for basically like 4 years, I would say, of just this toxic cycle of, the love bomb, and then something would happen, nastiness, XYZ. So it was honestly maybe like a year before I met Jesus, maybe less than, that I just was like, I can't keep doing this. And I think that honestly, we'd always block each other. And I think he had blocked me. And then I think I'd eventually blocked his phone number and was like, I just can't do this anymore. But then it wasn't until honestly going through intense healing and deliverance from that relationship that like it was fully able to be cut off and like healed within my heart.
Yeah. Man, that's so powerful to see, because it's such a concept that in our world and our culture, that it's like, you got the older guy, that gives you, as the woman, that gives you some validation or whatever, and of course, this goes back to, and it keeps coming up, and I think it'll continue to come up, is identity, and just where people find their identity is in relationships and in situationships and all these different things, whatever you want to call them, and so I just think it's so needful in this space to, allow for time for people to hear, because there's somebody watching this, I guarantee, that are in a relationship like that they need to get out of. And so it's so good to hear people that have been through there, done that, and how the Lord has brought them out. And so I appreciate you sharing just that. And of course, you got your own YouTube channel where you talk about a lot of these things as well that everybody should check out. And I think it's a great thing. And so I want to move here. So I want to touch on OnlyFans. Like I said, we'll get into detail here later, but because we're talking about your testimony first. And so a part of your testimony is that. So how do you end up in the OnlyFans industry?
Yeah. So as we had kind of spoken about, and it was emphasized, like my manifestation of insecurity was business. So it was always, once I had the business, then I would matter. Then my life would mean something when I made all this money. And so I was always on the pursuit of financial and I guess career success. And I guess, yeah, again, a lot of people I think with immigrant parents can like empathize or like resonate with that to some capacity, because they come to a new country and it's just about working, making something for yourself. And that's an excellent skill to have. But again, obviously within parameters. So that's my background: business, startups, marketing, all the different things. I just helped one of my best friends in her startup in hospitality. So helping her build these businesses, and we're working like stupid hours, like 80 to 100-hour work weeks on the floor, on our feet, building physical locations, managing locations. And it was just exhausting. It was I don't recommend it to people, but it was great to test the limits of how hard can you actually go. And like I learned my capacity and that I can literally work on my feet for 100 hours, for many, many, many months. So, but yeah, it destroyed me. And so I was like, I need a holiday. So I went to Europe for a month. And when I was in Europe, I had another close friend of mine decide while I was overseas that they were going to start this thing called an OnlyFans agency. And so they had friends that were in the OnlyFans world that they were quite well known, and they were complaining about their agencies. And so they had decided to build their own business. And so my close personal friend was like, well, hey, Vic, like you have business and marketing background. Would you want to come help us start to build this business? So I was like, yes, like I need to get out of hospitality. This is exhausting. I can't keep doing this anymore. So yeah, when I came back from Europe, that's when those conversations really began of how can I be involved in helping to build out this agency?
Yeah, man, that's such a interesting thing, because I know that world promises so much, and and there's a lot that it promises and that it offers, and that, so you're in it, you're involved in it. Like I said, we'll back up and kind of talk about that more, but I want to kind of hone in on this moment in your testimony where you come out of it. And I think in listening to you in different platforms where you talked about this, it reminds me of Saul, who became Paul. It's kind of
Yeah.
like when Jesus appears to him on the road to Damascus and he says, it's hard for you to kick against the pricks. In other words, he's persecuting the church, but in his heart, he knows that it's wrong. There's a pricking going on. And he's like, he's conflicted in this moment. And so Jesus confronts this confliction that's going on in Paul. And so, but I kind of hear that in your story too. You're doing this, but something on the inside is like, man, this can't be right. And then you end up going to a church service and some things come to light. Can you take us into that?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I was doing all of the marketing, so the front-facing stuff for the business. So I never actually saw the back end of OnlyFans and didn't really have that much of a concept. And I think so many people do of what OnlyFans is. I was like, I think that like you can just sell your feet on there. I think this is liberating.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
all of the things that the world tells us about stuff like OnlyFans and what our media tells us, what our culture tells us, and just limited information. So I'm working at this agency, I'm doing all the marketing, and that's basically you have to make girls in simplistic form go as viral as possible, as quickly as possible to pull in subscribers to get them to OnlyFans so you can make money. And over time we had realized that, as you said, I'm sure we'll get into the intricacies of an agency, but an agency is basically impersonating a girl on OnlyFans. So if we're impersonating girls, but I'm doing all the marketing and the OnlyFans account manager is doing all of that stuff on their end, if you're a subscriber and you're communicating to this girl that you think you're talking to on OnlyFans, because that's the main allure of OnlyFans is this communication. Well, when you realize that, wait a minute, I'm talking to her on Instagram about one thing, and then I go on OnlyFans and it doesn't sound the same, then the subscriber is suspicious. So we were like, okay, we need to change actually our structure behind the scenes because people are starting to figure out what's going on. So then instead of doing all of the marketing, split the girls in half, and then you'll do the full life cycle of the girls. And so what I'm now seeing all the pornography, because OnlyFans is actually a porn platform. And not a lot of people think that. And they're like, no, it's not. And it's like, actually, even statistically speaking, there's studies that say anywhere from 70 to 98% of all content on OnlyFans is not safe for work content, which means it's porn. And I've never seen porn. I've never been a consumer of porn, or anything like that. And so I'm seeing porn for the first time as a grown adult, I guess you could say. Well, I don't even know if 24 is a grown adult, but a big kid.
Yeah.
And it's people that I've built relationships with. It's these girls that I know, and I got to see who they were before I saw their acts. And so it's really hard. And the only way I can explain it is I felt like I was malfunctioning. I felt yuck. I felt gross. I didn't feel good. I can't watch it. I would just go like, I know this girl. This girl's really kind. This girl's really generous. This girl's really got beautiful family values. And she's doing this. And it just wasn't computing in my brain. And so what was happening internally is I'm like, this feels wrong. But everyone tells me that this is the lucrative industry. This is where we make all our money. This is the pinnacle of success. We've got the parties and the $1 million mansions, the drinking, the drugs, the cars, the people that you're around. And again, my manifestation of insecurity was business and getting there. So on paper, I'm like, this is it. I'm with Instagram famous people. I'm with famous people. I'm around millionaires. I'm in multi-million-dollar houses, like XYZ. And yet this feels horrible. This feels shallow. The drugs aren't working. The drinking's not working. It's getting more extreme. And I just don't feel good, And that's this simplistic, the easiest way to put it. I just did not feel good.
Yeah. And so you don't feel good. Like I said, I feel like this is this Saul before he becomes Paul moment where, you're the pricks, right? It's hard for you to kick against these pricks. And so you go through that and you end up in a certain church service, right? And so can you take, how do you even end up at church? How does that even happen? Can you take us into that?
Yep. Jesus just does cool things, hey. But basically, so we understand the context of how I'm feeling. Again, drinking's not working, drugs aren't working. I'm now at the point where my drug like abuse, I guess you can say, is like crazier than it's ever been. I'm like staying awake for like days at a time. Any opportunity I get to be able to drink, I'm drinking, and people that party know that you get a little drank to, and then what do you want? You want the drugs to go with the drink. And like, so that's just the cycle of my life. Um, and I'm like, it's as I just said, this is my lens. I'm like, this doesn't make me feel good anymore. This isn't helping anymore. I was like, so something needs to change. So I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I'm doing stuff that's really bad. Maybe if I go do something good, that'll make me feel better about myself and it'll offset all the bad that I'm doing. And so I had this like random genius thought. And I was like, oh, well, maybe a big enough act of good is I'll go overseas and I'll help refugees. And I don't know why, but I was like, I'm going to go to Greece and I'm going to help refugees. And like in my selfishness, I'm like, I'll just have a nice holiday and like go help some people and like it'll make me feel better. So, um, I was like, oh, that church I went to as a kid, I think they have like a refugee program. And so yeah, growing up, went to this church, but we stopped going when I was like 8 years old, I would say, like super young. And my memory is very limited interactions in this church. But I was like, oh, I'll just Google the church and I'll sign up for their refugee program. So I Google the church and I find their like outreach program and I sign up for it. And so God is just so flipping cool, but different to churches for people that don't know. I didn't know this, so I found it interesting, but churches have like different departments. So like the emails don't all go to the one place, right? And so that application form never went to the outreach department, but instead a young adults pastor got an email and I got to see it months later and it said, Victoria wants to reach out to the church. Here's her number, call her. And so I get a call one day from this young adults pastor and she's like, hey, I heard you want to come down to church, and invited me to come on a Thursday. And I like had alluded to what was going on, but of course I'm not telling some pastor that like I sell porn.
Yeah.
And I just thought that it was like the vetting process of what like churches did. I don't know. So I got invited to come down to church on a Thursday and speak to this young adults pastor. And I remember rocking up and sitting at the front of this church and just having these voices screaming in my head going, you can't go in there. You're such a bad person. You'll literally burst into flames. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't go in there. Like I can't do it. And I'm just wrestling with myself. And I just remember going, Victoria, there's someone here and they're waiting for you. Like just go in. And so I go in and for hours, I just word vomit to this beautiful woman. I don't know, like I kind of sell porn and everyone tells me that it's good, but it feels really bad. And then I was building a medicinal cannabis company at the time as well. And so I'm talking about legal pimping and legal weed and all these things. And this beautiful woman who's like the most purest person I still know her to this day, just handled that so well. I'm talking about all the things that I'm struggling with. And she just goes, I really think that you should come to church this Sunday. We have a guest speaker speaking, and I think you'll really resonate with her. So then I come to church on that Sunday, and this guest speaker in church is talking about this over-sexualized culture, and is talking about things like OnlyFans, and is talking about what's happening in schools and in the next generation, and they go around the country and they see what's happening. And she said this line, and it just clicked something in my heart. And she goes, Christians are supposed to be the salt and the light of the earth, and they have failed, and we are destroying the next generation. And it just did something within me. And I just went, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. This is wrong. What we are doing is wrong. And so after she finished speaking, I literally like ran down to her. I'm in the balcony, like at the back. And I ran up to this beautiful woman and I just go, hi, my name is Victoria. I work for an OnlyFans agency and I hate myself. And she didn't do what I thought Christians would do. And I don't know, you're going to burn in hell and all this. She just goes, let's have lunch. And this woman sat with me for hours and she had lunch with me and she answered all my questions. Isn't this positive? Isn't this liberating? Isn't this ethical porn? And she just spoke the truth of the reality of what we were doing. And yeah, that was on a Sunday. And by the Friday, I quit the agency. I walked away from everything. It was like a 14-year friendship with one of the people there, my childhood best friend, all my friends. I walked away from my dream business, which was a cannabis business, walked away from the agency. 8 weeks later, I'm sober, I'm baptized, and it's been a year and a half now. And yeah, almost every single day since that day, we've just been talking about OnlyFans agencies and what Jesus really, saved me from.
Yeah. Oh, so powerful, Victoria. I love hearing it. But and kudos to those people that were there and weren't judgmental, but there to help you through that, unpack it, understand it. Because there's a lot of churches that wouldn't have allowed you in. It wouldn't have said you're too broken, you're too this, right? Which is sad, but it's true. And so I want to commemorate and just shout out those people that loved you through. And that's just a beautiful thing. So you talked about being sober, Victoria, and all that, but I don't want to just pass through that, Victoria. My goodness, you're over here drinking and Coke, and I'm not talking about Coca-Cola either. You know what I'm saying? And so there's all this going on, but there's an encounter that you have that I heard you share about with you and the Lord, and in a closet, if I'm not mistaken. Can you take us into that?
Oh, guys, God is such a big God. Oh man, we can't box him, can we? Hey,
No.
but yeah, I love this. So, and I think that it's really important for people to understand as well that, like, yes, okay, so from that Sunday to that Friday, walked away from everything, and I didn't again, but between that Sunday and this encounter, I had bended drugs 3 times. And so I remember rocking up to church literally high on coke from the night before, like I was on like 2 hours sleep.
Sure.
So it's not been a super linear journey. And I just want people to, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but it's okay that these things take time and it's a process, you know? And for me, I find this thing called Jesus. I'm like, I think that I have to follow it. And so I was like, I don't want to keep drinking anymore. I don't want to keep doing drugs. It doesn't make me feel good, but I can't stop. And so I remember that, and the vaping and the cigarettes, and I'm trying. And again, I just cannot stop. It's something that's bigger than me. And so I remember it was my cousin's wedding, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to drink and I'm not going to do drugs. I'll bring my vape and that'll be my vice. And like, this will be the process of like weaning off these things, I guess you could say. And before you know it, it's 2 a.m. and I'm high and I'm playing table tennis. And I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah. And I can remember as well, like being in the bathroom, having like the Coke, literally, I'm like sitting on the toilet and someone's bringing the Coke to my nose. And I remember just going, I don't want to do this. Why am I doing it? I don't want to, but I did it anyways, And so for me, I came home that next day and I remember just crying and going, Jesus, I don't want to do this, but this is bigger than me. I can't control this. I need your help. And it was just the craziest thing. Yeah, I'm on my hands and my knees and I'm just bawling my eyes out. I'm just crying and I'm like, I need your help. This is bigger than me. And like, I've only had this happen like a couple of times but like literally, I don't know how else to explain it other than like, I'm on my hands and knees and like Jesus with his left hand is literally standing next to me. And he puts his hand on my head and he goes, it's going to be okay. I'm going to heal you. And that was it. Like from that day, I have not touched cigarettes, drugs, vapes, alcohol, nothing. But the cool part in that is this is where I'm like, God is so extra and he just does the coolest things. And this is why like we have a supernatural God that literally still does supernatural phenomenons. So it was like a couple of weeks later. And so I immediately, all the cravings for the vapes, the cigarettes, everything is just gone. I'd thrown out obviously cigarettes and vapes and everything. So there was nothing around. But a couple of weeks later, I'm not particularly sure exactly on the timeline, but it was soon after that. I was with one of my friends and my friend vapes and we're in the car. She goes, babe, do you care if I vape? I was like, no, I don't care. And so she starts vaping. And if we've been around vapes, we all know they have a very strong smell to them. And so we're in my car and I remember she's vaping and I go, I should be smelling something. Like, And I look around, I look at her, and I can remember this perfectly. In her hand, there should have been a vape. Like she should have been holding a vape. And there's nothing. And it's invisible.
Mm.
And I'm like, what? And I knew she was vaping, but she's holding an invisible vape. And then as the weeks go on, people are on the street and they're smoking invisible cigarettes. I can't see it and I can't smell it. And then my
Mm.
first event that I went to was a birthday, and it was at a bar, my first time being around alcohol again. And people are holding invisible cups. And I realized God had blinded me to cigarettes, to the smell, to out, literally supernaturally healed me and supernaturally blinded me to these things. And I was like,
Wow.
what? I cannot explain it other than a supernatural phenomenon of what God did. And it's been the wildest thing of just literally being blinded to drugs and alcohol and cigarettes.
Oh my gosh, man. That's so powerful, Victoria, man. I love it. I love these kind of testimonies, and I love your freedom to share such, precious thing that happened between you and the Lord. And so thank you for sharing that. And because I feel like there's a lot of people that be encouraged, not just, by the OnlyFans side, but just how the Lord brought you out of all of that crap, And so I just appreciate you sharing that testimony. And so, with that being said, there are other things we could hone in on, but I think now's a good time that we covered your testimony. We did it at least some justice, which I'm so thrilled with. Like I said, the most important part is your personal testimony, to me. And so, but now, Victoria, this is why a lot of people maybe have clicked on, I want Victoria, what I want to happen is here, I want you as a former OnlyFans, agency, you worked in the, marketer, all that stuff. I want you to shatter the illusion of OnlyFans here. And I want this to happen here. So take us into that and walk us through what's the word I'm looking for? Intricacies of, of OnlyFans. Can you take us into that?
Yeah, totally. So, I like to break it down. I was just going to say something. I was going to be like, number one, you're not talking to the girl and you're going to make $180 a month. Let's start there.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Basically put, guys, it's all fake and it's all just to manipulate people to make money off them. But I guess I like to break down OnlyFans agencies kind of into three elements for people. And the biggest emphasis that I hope people can get from this as well is a lot of people think that like the sex and exploitation and porn industry and all the bad things are here and OnlyFans is over here. And that it's, the better way and the more ethical choice, whatever you want to paint it as, but it's the exact same thing. And so I'm hoping that people can understand that as well in these, activism spheres, in these conversations, so many people pin male against female, and it's, it's a supply issue, it's a demand issue, it's whatever it is. This is a human issue. And this is not a male or female problem, but this is a human problem that is multi-generational because the average age of pornography exposure is 8 years old. But I've had personal conversations with men in their late 70s that are affected by pornography. And so It is across multi-generations that this is an issue. So we must not attack people, but the problem. And the problem is a $97 billion industry that is literally destroying generations in a way that we have actually never seen before because of the use of the internet, and the way that it's been normalized and glorified and integrated. And so I just want to put that as the prefaces for people, as we kind of deep dive into this, because I think the lens that we look at this really matters. And so an OnlyFans agency exists for one reason, and it is to make money off the girl's account pretending to be the girl. So for people that maybe perhaps aren't super familiar with OnlyFans, the biggest allure of OnlyFans is that it's not like traditional pornography as in like Pornhub or whatever, because it's to a degree, in quotation marks, nameless and faceless people. Where OnlyFans, that influencer that you follow, that celebrity that you follow, they can go and jump on OnlyFans and then they can tell you that they're on OnlyFans. So come have a conversation with me. So there's this allure of connection and relationship. And so now I can go and that girl that I follow that I think is really cute on Instagram, I can go follow her OnlyFans and she knows me and she's going to talk to me and I can ask her for anything. So we can see why this phenomenon has just blown up, especially during COVID in 2020. This just blew up. And so OnlyFans agencies exist because if a girl just say has like 100,000 followers on Instagram, for an example, she's
Hmm.
funneling all of those followers from her Instagram to her OnlyFans. Again, come chat with me on OnlyFans. So how is she supposed to facilitate having thousands of conversations with all these subscribers, all the pay-per-views, all the custom requests, all the content requirement, marketing her account, doing all the things while also having a social media presence? Well, that's pretty difficult. And so that's one thing that
Hmm.
people think is I can just jump on there and it's so easy and it's in the shadows and I'll
Yeah.
make a bunch of money. Well, no, that's not accurate in any capacity. You have to be promoting this. It's a product. And people have to know so then they can come to your page. And again, the content requirement is huge. So OnlyFans agencies exist to offset all that work. And so what will happen is specifically at the agency I worked at, this is kind of the cycle, is a girl comes to us and she'll do this thing called an onboarding process. So we have a questionnaire, and a questionnaire is to be able to ask all of the intricate details that we can about a girl, because that gets turned into this thing called a brief. And then the brief gets sent to these things called chatters. And so chatters are because think about it, the girl's not talking on the account. Are we going to talk on the account like as the managers? No. We're going
Mm.
to offset this work. So we're going to go and hire these things called chatters, and they're people from third world countries that pretend to
Wow.
be multiple girls, and it's a sales commission role. So these people literally will have like a timesheet. In like ours was just a spreadsheet. Again, we're a startup, guys. But in like and like all the different girls, so their average money that they make, and then the average sales that you have to hit per shift. So we're bringing people in, and these guys think that they're talking to the girls, but it's actually these things called chatters that have a brief about the girl so they can best represent the girl. And they are
Mm.
expected to hit a certain quota of money that they're making. And so people, again, I hope that that just shatters illusion number one. You're not talking to
Yeah.
the girl, and it's
Yeah.
literally a way to make money off men. That's it. All it is a way to make money off you. It's not for your service, for your benefit, for anything like that. It's literally, and we would train the chatters in this thing called the girlfriend experience. And
Mm.
so it's like this is another conversation in itself, but statistically as well, majority of the people that are on OnlyFans are supposedly married men. It's a crazy high statistic, like
Wow.
98% or something are supposedly
Wow.
married men. So this is a bigger conversation in itself of why is the girlfriend experience working on married men on a porn platform? And so clearly there's again something culturally here that needs to be addressed. But that's basically account management. And there's so many other intricacies in that. But I think that's the most important thing is we're pretending to be the girl and to make money. And so in that, another, I guess, big misconception is that, well, the girl has like free will and it's more ethical and she gets to choose what
Hmm.
she wants to do and I have more autonomy. And so in this onboarding process, in that questionnaire, we have
Hmm.
these things called levels. And so we're immediately, as you're inaugurated into this ecosystem, you're doing the questionnaire, you're filling out all these very personal details about yourself, and you come to the levels. And so the levels is what content are you comfortable doing? And so level one is Instagram and bikini content. Level two is implied nudity. Level three is full nudity. Level four, I'm so sorry for the language, but is everything but. And then level five is
Mm.
everything. And so what we had, what the reason why this is significant for people to understand is what do you think this is doing psychologically? You've just come into OnlyFans. You're now at an agency that's telling you, we're going to make you all this money and all the things, and this is better to be with us, and blah, blah, blah. And we're selling the dream and the sisterhood and the lifestyle. And then you look at this and you're like, well, I'm just comfortable doing like, again, people are like, wait, I thought I could just sell my feet on here. But you're learning that
Hmm.
already you're
Hmm.
inaugurated into a system that I have to show something. And the baseline level that I have to show is lingerie, but then the top level is everything. So don't you think that if you're ticking that bottom box, you're already going, I'm at the bottom of the barrel.
Hmm.
And so I therefore must have to climb this hierarchy system to make money. And so there was a perception at the agency when girls would say that I'm not making enough money, that we would literally have as a soft influenced culture, well, you're just a level two. What do you expect? And
Mm.
so again, that means that women are being soft, and soft influence is a lot more powerful than hard influence. If we had the questionnaire and we said, well, if you want to make money, you're going to be a level five. That's hard influence. Where if we give you the option, but we're like, well, if you want to make more like money, some of the girls here, they do these things. And so culturally, and what are they seeing?
Hmm.
And well, the best top earners at the agency, they do everything. And so you then are softly influencing yourself to be like, well, then therefore I have to do that. And that's what social media is doing. That's a conversation in itself. But just to shatter that illusion for people that are pro OnlyFans in some capacity, there is such a level of manipulation here. And the US
Mm.
definition of human trafficking literally has the words manipulation and coercion. Um, and so we can see that even in just the beginning phases, you're already being manipulated and coerced. And this concept of free will and empowerment is already really being challenged. And then as we even went on at the agency, I was the one who came up with the idea. I'm like, why don't we just get rid of level one? It doesn't make us any money. And so we got rid of
Mm.
level one. And so then
Wow.
already this adds more depth to this because it's like your baseline level now is implied nudity. But wait a minute, I thought I could just jump on OnlyFans and just like show my feet and maybe do some cute outfits. And you're telling me that I already have to be half naked on the internet? But again, so that's really important for people to understand. And that's literally just in like element one, which is account management. And then what would happen from there is you would bring people from doing all of the account setup to the marketing, and that's me. And so we literally, our expectations of the girls was to have 3 to 5 TikTok accounts. And every single day on those TikTok accounts, they had to be posting 5 unique videos per account. And so that's 20 unique videos every single day. And we would watch their accounts and are they posting the same videos? Are they unique? Are they this? There's all these requirements that we had. And so where we were getting these videos is we had actually hired an expert that would study algorithms. And so this person would literally every single day send us very specific, curated, provocative content. And
Wow.
it was these trends, it was the music, it was the captions, the hashtags, everything you can imagine, right? And so imagine every single day we're getting sent multiple videos, and these girls have to recreate these videos for virality. And doing this method, we got one girl in 7 days on one TikTok to 2.2 million views. So it's like
Wow.
social media is being inundated with hypersexualized intentional content
So
to
true. Yeah.
softly influence men to come to OnlyFans. What does that do for the women? Well, if you're seeing this content everywhere, it's being rewarded with the likes, with the whatever, the followers, you're going, well, that's a desirable woman. That's a successful woman. So therefore, I must have to act this way and post these things and do these things to be liked and loved in
Mm.
our society. So there's a huge cultural implication here. And that's just TikTok. Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, Snapchat, dating apps, everything you can think of, girls are being marketed for OnlyFans. And
Wow.
so that's a whole web in itself. And it's a global industry. We were talking to people in Germany, we were talking to people in the Ukraine, talking like everywhere you can think of. This is an entire industry on how to market OnlyFans girls, literally just to make money. So that's marketing. And then
Yeah.
yeah, and then we get into recruitment. Um, and so again, people think that it's free will and all the different things, but we had figured out over time that we would lie and say that one of the girls at the agency was fresh 18. She wasn't, she was like older. Um, but we realized that she was the one making the most money. And we've also kind of correlated that the most top search porn categories at the time was teen, fresh teen, and barely legal. So we went,
Wow.
oh, yeah, the younger the better. So then what we started doing is we would scour the internet looking for girls that were number one already posting provocative content. And then from there, you would look for girls that looked young and you would literally just cold message them from this agency account. and we're throwing parties, we're having dinners, we're renting Airbnb mansions and doing photo shoots and like not porn photo shoots, but like Instagram content ones. So you're seeing all of this luxurious lifestyle. And so then this agency is now messaging you and being like, hey, we love your vibe. Have you ever considered doing OnlyFans, or have you ever considered like management? And you're seeing this profile again. So this dream is being painted to you. And so that's how you recruit, literally, like that's how we would recruit girls. And so you can see that this is hopefully an encapsulating or like well-rounded view of the realisticness of what's happening behind the scenes with OnlyFans. And so people again are thinking that it's just this silly platform to some capacity that you can just jump on, or everyone's making money on there. Well, realistically, the average wage of an OnlyFans girl is $180 a month. And you now know that you're probably going to have to jump on there, do porn. Statistically, I think it was in 2022, there was 2.1 million content creators on OnlyFans, and only 300 of those 2.1 million made more than $1 million a year. And so we have to remember that you've got like Black China was on there. There was Iggy Azalea. I think Cardi B's on there. So you've got these mega celebrities that have a pool of people that they can bring in. So of course they're making a bunch of money, and of course that's all you see, but that's just not realistic. And so I'm really hoping that that kind of hits all the different elements to, again, really shatter the illusion that this is empowering, this is a positive, this is a legitimate way to make money. It's just an extension of the porn industry in a different outfit.
Man, wow. Oh, so much great information there, Victoria. My gosh. Because it's so a part of our culture, and it's a part of what you see every day. OnlyFans is talked about. But basically, you hear about OnlyFans like every other day, especially if you're on social media. Like totally. You see it, you hear it, it's in front of your face. And so, but I want to hone in on this Chatters one you hear a little bit, because I feel like that's so interesting. So you're saying that somebody's thinking that they're talking to this girl, this chick they think so cute, hot, sexy, whatever. But what's really going on is they're talking to somebody like in another country. Like, can you just like, that's just so crazy to me. So I want to like zoom in on that more. So they're like talking to this person. Like, can you talk about that?
Yeah. So again, people have to look at things from a business lens and understand that efficiency wise, it's not efficient to be sitting there talking to multiple men, paying, potentially Australian workers to do so. It's too expensive, and it's just not wise. So what you do is you offset that work to third world countries so you can hire cheap labor. And so this comes into labor exploitation, and all of that. Yeah. But we would pay chatters $1 to $5 an hour. It depends on kind of like the average of like, but that's like the industry average for a chatter. And so there are these people that are working 6 to 7 days a week. We would literally have chatters that would say, I want to work 7 days a week. These 12 to 16-hour shifts, being multiple girls, so jumping between accounts, making money. Wow. And so what we would do with chatters is, as account managers, you would have to read through all their conversations, because again, they're speaking English, which is a second language to them. And so you're training them on the go, or being like, yep, why haven't you responded to this person? Or are you talking to this person, or what? So you're literally being a pimp for these chatters that are pretending to be the girls of, are you responding? Why didn't you make enough money here? Why didn't you do this? And like, you have eyes across all these accounts. And then once a week, we would have a training session with them on what did they do well, what can they improve on, and what do they need help with, so we could continue to improve their sales skills to be able to make money off these men.
Oh my gosh. That's so crazy, Victoria. So crazy. Oh my gosh. Oh man, so crazy. So there are people that are doing this. They're spending all this time, effort, money, all this stuff. And there are people, and the funny thing is, there are people that would hear what you've said on the different places you've said it, and yet they still go back to OnlyFans, and they still a part of these things. Like, what do you think feeds into that? Because your voice has been pretty prominent on some of these things, but I feel like a lot of those people still end up going back, knowing these things. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that there's a couple things. That's a great question. There's the loneliness element for men, and then there's the illusion element. I think that And then like maybe they hear this and then they're going to go ask the girl on, well, is that you? Like, is it really? I heard that chatters. And what do you think that if it is a chatter, do you think it's going to be someone
Yeah.
who's like, yeah, my
Yeah.
name's Jim. I'm actually from the Philippines. You caught me. Like, no, they're
Yeah.
going to lie and they're
Yeah.
going to call up the girl
Yeah.
and say, hey, your subscriber is suspicious of you. Can you send a voice message to them? Hey, can you send a video to them?
Mm.
Like, they're going to negate that. And so I think that there's, again, a level of illusion here that needs to be shattered, that you're going to hear about chatters. And then you're probably going to go ask the girl, hey, do you have chatters on your account? And what do you think is going to happen? Let's use our logic brain here. They're not going to say, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, the jig is up. We'll quit and we'll put, Tiffany back on the account. Like, no, they're going to lie to you and do everything they can to keep you hooked. And so I think there's just a realisticness of we have to understand that this is more than likely happening. But then what I think the pull is again, feeding into the illusion, but then this loneliness element. What if you are a guy and you're hearing this? Maybe you struggle with relationships. Maybe you do have a pretty severe porn addiction and you're so consumed by shame that, again, it's like a toxic relationship. Your validation hit is this girl and you're like, I don't care if it's some dude, but someone's talking to me and making me feel good. So it's like, how do you negate that problem then? And then that comes into a deeper work and a deeper conversation. But I think that there's just a lot of those elements. And then honestly, unfortunately, I do think some people just don't care. And what do you do for people that don't care?
Yeah. Oh man, so good. Such a necessary conversation. I think that's the operative word. That's the main word is the illusion. We talked about the illusion and shattering that, but also too, I want to look at what you're doing now and a lot of what you're doing now. Because we got your testimony, amazing testimony. We looked at OnlyFans here and what the agency and how that works. But now let's go into this part, like what you're doing now. And I want to start with a story that I heard you tell about a girl you were talking to. And I want you to kind of talk about that. You were talking to a girl and you asked her what she was good at. And could you go into like that story? Cause I think that kind of sets up what you're doing kind of perfectly.
Well, that was when I was working at the OnlyFans agency. And so when I was working at the OnlyFans agency, one of the girls there, was like, I hate doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't make me feel good. And so I was like, okay, babe, let's get you involved in like the back end business element of this. And she goes, so we sat down together. We were literally at like the table sitting across from each other. We were in her home and she had just bought a laptop, getting ready to like learn how to do all the back end business things, right? And I remember I said, okay, so what are you good at? And she goes, I'm good at being hot. And I was like, nah, come on, babe. Tell me, like, what are you good at? And I remember she just paused. She goes, no, Vic, I'm not good at anything else. I can't do anything. This is the only thing that I'm good at. And that was the end of the conversation. And as I said, she brought a lot. She was all prepared, like ready to learn and but then in this conversation, you could literally see that dream was just shattered for her because she's like, wait a minute, I actually can't do anything. This is the only thing I'm good at is literally being hot. And that was the conversation and it was done, and I just think that it's so sad because that's literally what in an unprecedented way, this is what a generation is being told, that the only thing they are good at is literally getting naked online and being hot,
Wow. And that's such a touching story and it reveals so much. And once again, it goes back to that with Saul, right? There's something on the inside was going against him doing what he was doing. He knew it wasn't right. And so, but I love the calling and what you're doing, Victoria, is like, you're in this point where you're creating gems and you're walking through this, of redefining worth and value to people. Can you tell us about that and what's the heart behind that?
Yeah. So creating gems is so fun. It feels so multifaceted already, but it's my business. And so the business element of what I do is with the background that I have in startups and marketing and just all the different things. There's so many beautiful countercultural voices out there, and so many people that do want to see a new culture being built, and want to reject these type of things and have incredible stories, but they
Yeah.
just need the business lens of things. And so I love being able to help non-for-profits and individuals and, building their callings, building their non-for-profits and, all
Hmm.
of the fun things that come with the back end of the strategy of that. So GEMS is like high level strategy for one element of consultancy that I do. And then GEMS is also consultancy with non-for-profits in the deep dive of all of this OnlyFans stuff. But
Yeah.
then GEMS is also the podcast that I do. And that's again just different lenses of as I'm going through this faith journey in a very public way, it seems, of the different things that I'm navigating and learning as I'm going along. And then GEMS as well is it feels like a movement of, again, really how do we redefine what worth means on social media? How do we not just change a culture, but build a new one where we totally reject all of these preconceived notions on, again, my only worth is how hot I am, how I can just make money getting naked on OnlyFans or whatever, and really champion women to dream big dreams again. And by default, in doing that and rejecting this culture, it's like this beautiful one-upmanship in a really healthy way. Because if a girl values herself more, she's not going to allow a man to treat her that way. Then a man has to step. And so I just see it being this beautiful
Hmm.
way that we can really champion and build a new culture. And so that's, yeah, through podcasting, through speaking, all of that, to talk about all these different things and just really try and get people to understand in the, yeah, shattering this illusion and championing a different narrative. So that's kind of GEMS all encompassing.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. And you have a YouTube. Can you tell people about that? That they can go check out your YouTube?
Yeah, there's such like an interesting story behind starting the YouTube.
Yeah.
But like simplistically put, I'll be honest with you guys, I really didn't want to do it. Um And
Okay.
through just a series of events of God doing what only God can do, He really placed it on my heart to just start showing up. And so it's so much fun. Yeah, deep diving obviously into the story behind the scenes of really, yeah, what God delivered and saved me from. And then it's just me navigating this thing called Jesus and faith and culture and what I've come from and what Christian culture says, but what does the Bible say? And so it's
Hmm.
just a really fun, honestly, it feels like a verbal diary process of
Wow. Yeah.
what's happening. What does it mean to grow up in faith in this world that we're living in and just navigating all the different adventures that God's been taking me on so far. So yeah, GEMS is just a fun place to just, I feel, facilitate and open up for conversation.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And I encourage everyone to check that out. And what you're doing is such a great thing. Like I said, I've watched several of your videos there. And so, such great content there and needed content. Now, Victoria, as we begin to land this proverbial plane, so to speak, this podcast is based on 1 John 4:4. That's a verse that says, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And so, when you hear that or have that thought about where the Bible says that greater is he on the inside of us than he that is in the world, what comes to your mind? What do you think about when you hear that?
The first word that comes in my mind is just limitless.
Hmm.
That if, and this is like hopefully maybe like a call to action, but man, if greater is who is in us than what is in the world, if we truly believe that the spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, if we truly believe that Jesus is with us and will never leave us or forsake us, that greater, then we are limitless in what we can do. And so
Yeah.
it's about having, I think, that like courage and tenacity and grit and resilience to look at the word and take it at the word and
Yeah.
believe, well,
Yeah.
I can do anything because whatever God calls me to is greater than anything that is in this world that's trying to come against me. And so therefore I am limitless in the capacity I have because I have Jesus. And to just be
Wow.
bold and fearless and just take everything and say, well, if this is from God, then there is nothing that can stop this from happening. And being so assured of that, and I think that as faith believers, we're so timid in some capacities. But I think if you believe that greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world, then you can say, well, with Jesus, I am limitless to achieve the calling that he has put on my life and run at it with all my heart.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good, Victoria, man. Thank you so much for being on, Victoria. Man, it's so good talking to you, hearing your story. Man, I'm so excited about what the Lord's doing in your life. And thank you for adding value to Greater Than Podcast with your voice. I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you guys for watching and being a part. Like I said, make sure you check out her YouTube. She's also done several interviews on like some great podcasts as well. So check those out, support what she's doing, and don't be deceived out there. You know, the illusion has been shattered. Now it's time for you, it's a call to action, right? That greater is he that's in us than he that is in the world. And that includes deception and things of that nature. You can rise above it. There's always hope and there's always help. Hey, my name's Elijah Merle. I don't want you to forget this now. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world.